Hello everybody and welcome to the eChunk presentation on the use of social media. I suppose it's one thing which certainly defines 24th century social life and education is the use of social media. And as I said, we're teaching now Generation Z, which are the people born from about 93, 94 onwards. And as I said, for them, the use of social media has become ubiquitous. And I suppose we often do have a situation where we have a lot of middle-aged lecturers teaching people who, our technology levels may not be up what theirs. The issue is that, that sometimes we can mistake an ability to use, say, social media and the internet, which prepares them for college, which it actually doesn't. I mean, they may not particularly have very good Microsoft Office skills. So, as I said, we need to just bear that in mind. However, as a tool of communication, and I think just with yesterday's storms there, it's quite interesting to sort of see how social media was used to portray and pass on information. So we'll just begin here. We'll just start off. I suppose the presentation is going to look at just setting the scene. There's a short video here. Then we're just going to briefly discuss. I have a diagram which will talk through some of the Web 2 categories, and then just look at some of the huge range of social media that could be employed. But also I think we do need to incorporate and then acknowledge that there are certain issues in terms of using social media in education. So there's a short video. It's about 3 minutes, just under 4 minutes, just to sort of give people a sense of what we're actually dealing with now. Certainly food for thought. And so, I think when we look at some of the other tools that we use, I think we need to be sort of engaging with people. Now, as I said, we'll discuss some issues later on, and there's certainly no doubt that we do need to acknowledge that there are certainly issues, certainly in terms of privacy, as we'll discuss later on, but in terms of as a way of reaching with people and creating sort of communities of learners, passing on information, I think certainly social media is certainly a tool worth considering. Now, as I said, even in terms of video sharing, that simply is just a video. I just got a picture of a laptop, embedded it, in terms of even just that level of engagement just with the students like that. So what are some of the social web tools there? And you can see that this is already out of date and some of the stuff will come and go. People may remember Bebo, blog early, blog often, MySpace, and they've all sort of come and go. But as I said, we do have, as I said, I suppose the major ones obviously are Facebook now, but apparently, like for a lot of younger people, Facebook now is becoming a little bit passé. But as I said, you have stuff like, say, microblogging, which the most well-known would be Twitter, and you're just restricted to 160 characters. That's about all you can do. But for a lot of people, it's just short messages. But you can also put up links, and we'll come back to that shortly. There's also major publishing, like WordPress, people set up. So and I know some of the lecturers in the college are using, getting students to create their own sort of WordPress websites, are using blogs, and there's also a blogging tool in Blackboard as well. Photo sharing in Flickr, video sharing YouTube. So there's a whole range of them here like that, and I think what you do is you maybe just come across one or two and just consider maybe using that, because you could actually get snowed under, I think, with the range of tools which are available. So just to paint some sort of picture there. I thought obviously the most well known, one of the most well known is YouTube. In terms of sometimes with videos though, what you can do is you click on a video and there's adverts and stuff, and there's a lot of messing around. Like, it's still a major tool, and it's certainly a very useful tool. The latest version of Blackboard now, you can actually search directly into YouTube, and it will actually put up YouTube videos for you, or you can just get web links and put them up as web links as well. So I think in terms of just looking for tools which are useful. Now, I suppose, and one of the good things, I suppose, particularly with Blackboard, if you're teaching the same module again, it should be up there. Now, obviously, the links sometimes can be broken, but I think that's a lot less of a problem than people sort of imagine. But there's certainly no doubt that YouTube certainly is one of the most ubiquitous tools. Another one I don't know if people are familiar with is Vimeo. I don't know if people have heard of that. They're all HD quality, and there's no adverts on Vimeo. I just sort of name of Facebook here. I just blanked out some of the images here. This is a particular group. It's work-based learners. I'm just taking out some of the identifying stuff. It's certainly very useful. I've taught a number of work-based learners programs, and a lot of them utilise not just the blackboard but the communication tools outside of that, whether it's emailing each other or texting, or increasingly groups are using Facebook. They can pass on information, they put up resources here like that and say, so I think that's, I am a fan of Facebook, but as I said, I think it's very good if it sort of is organically. This one is actually run by the students themselves, it's a closed group, and therefore they sort of use it and help pass on information. The thing about Facebook or any sort of social media, particularly if the college gets involved, it needs to have somebody keeping it live and update. It's like a sort of, you go on a notice board and the stuff 3 or 4 months out of date. It's the same thing with any sort of social media. You need to keep it live and important like that. But it's a very, very useful if you're sort of interested in that sort of concern about community of learners. I think it's a very good tool. But I think as well, like in terms of, say, if people are teaching maybe some sort of communication skills, you can ask maybe a group to set up and monitor a Facebook page or a Twitter blog for a week or a month or a year. It's say, like, in terms of just looking for something which is a bit more innovative and a bit more just sort of a slight twist on it like that. So that's, I just want to say to people, but as I said, we need to bear that in mind. Another social networking site is academia.edu. I don't know if people are familiar with it or if they've heard of that. There's over 7.5 million papers. It started off initially with sort of PhD researchers. When people are writing their PhD, they'd often sort of present papers along the way. So they will actually put them up on edu for sort of contribution, what people felt or thought. So there are millions and millions of very good, very, very reputable, and it's not just researchers anymore, it's an awful lot of very well respected academics, and they're putting up their papers here. It's also sort of useful in terms of, you can get sort of analytics here. It's one of the papers here, they've got 168 views so far, and you can track that. So as I said, I think the social media is not just necessarily for the students, but for people who are talking about, say, continuing professional development. If you're getting research outputs and you're sort of going for an interview or going for a presentation to say, how do you know you're making an impact? Well, you can actually get data analytics here and actually tell people how many people have downloaded your papers, how many people have viewed your papers. So but it's also a very useful resource for directing students too, and maybe for certainly for our postgraduate community. I think academia.edu would be a site sort of worth considering. So I'm just, as I said, I'm always quite wary about social media in terms of people think I'm saying this is the absolute truth. I'm simply just throwing out some ideas here. In terms of another one there is Twitter, which is a microblog site. So you're very restricted. This is an open source one. Anybody can look into this one. So and this, I don't know if people are familiar with the way we sort of tag things. So say you had a conference or something coming up, you put a hashtag there, and that means every time it's in, people will find it. So for example, the EdTech conference last year, it was hashtag EdTech13. So every time you're sending out an email or anything to do with that, it'll come up. So if people are organising conferences or anything like that, or seminars, I think it's certainly well worth considering in terms of getting your message out there. So whenever you're organising something, you give it a hashtag, and then it's just people can follow it and find it there. So I think, as I said, that's I think that's something which is certainly well worth considering. And then people can put up here, they can put up their own comments, but they're also putting up links then. So although you're restricted in terms of the number of characters, you can put up images, links to documents and so on like that. So another one that I think is very, very interesting is a site called Pinterest. If you can imagine, it's basically like, if you will, an electronic notice board. And if you're pinning, they actually use the term pin, you pin up, you can put up an image or a video, and you can put in like, a small comment here about, the particular photograph. So one assessment that I've given people and I've recommended to a few other lecturers who've used it. Say you have, say, first or second year students, say first year students who are not, they're still getting comfortable with writing and stuff. This is actually a work-based learners. And we're talking about, say, the philosophy of education or philosophy of learning. That's a fairly weighty topic. So what I suggested was that, what was used was that the students would actually pick 6 images which to them encapsulated what education meant. But it could be care, it could be any concept that you want. And on each of those images, now they can either generate those images themselves by taking them, or just get them from wherever they want on the internet. And then you just put a comment in. And then you just encourage them maybe to write a 200-word commentary on what's this trying to explain, why am I trying to get at that. It's just a way of sort of eliciting a response to get things going. And as I said, we have different styles of learning. Some people are more visual in that sense, and I think this is a way of combining. And I just sort of to this link here. This is just one on education. It's just people who have just putting stuff together about different elements of education. What does education mean to you? What does e-learning mean to you? And I think it's a nice, fluid, flexible way of encouraging people to create a resource that's not just a written piece, that's out there. It's about sharing that. And I just think it's just Pinterest.com, and as I said, it's a very, very straightforward. If students can use any sort of social media, if you can upload a photograph or attach, the sort of skills that you use when you're sending an email with an attachment, if you can do that, you can do this. I mean, the one thing with a lot of this piece of software, it's very intuitive, it's very, very straightforward to use. So, there was Pearson Education done a large-scale study in 2011, and I have the link there at the end of that. I think we do certainly need to acknowledge that and say that the faculty were concerned with the time it requires. So what I would say is, there's a number of ways you can consider it. Certainly, if you are going to be, moderating something like some sort of social media site or discussion board or anything like that, that requires time, and that's certainly something that you need to consider. For some people, it's part of their day to just log into social media. For other people, less so. But certainly privacy and integrity, and I think that as I said, it's just in terms of getting those guidelines right in terms of sensible and appropriate use. So as I said, they can be a very, very useful adjunct to teaching and assessing, but I mean, it's like, as all things, at the heart of good sort of education is sound education and learning principles. They need to sort of be adhered to. Not to get, I think sometimes, there is a temptation sometimes to get it seduced by the technology. I mean, it's always as a sort of support to the teaching. If what you're delivering is not well thought out, it's not well structured, if it's not thought out, if it's the assessment strategy, any amount of videos and flashbang wallop is not necessarily going to help that whole semester like that. So one thing I'd also ask as well, that if you are sort of creating anything as well, consider maybe adding to repositories, open access. As I said, there's a range of stuff there that could have gone on and on, but SlideShare is another open source where people upload their own PowerPoint presentation. So it's just something to consider that, when we take, it's nice to maybe just consider what we can give back. In terms of say the academia.edu, my papers are up there and anybody can download them like that. But as I said, yeah, it's utilised in an effective and integrated manner. But as I said, time, resources, and those issues about privacy and integrity, and we need to have them resolved.